Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to NBR, or as we like to call it around here, Nothing But Rants, the show where I find topics that I'm oddly passionate about and I pontificate upon them. These are not hot takes, but rather takes that I'm hot about. What's up? You really like that?
Let's shut up and grind some tape.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome into the Film Guy Network here on a beautiful, wonderful, tremendous Thursday evening. We got a saying around here, last show, best show. If you hung out with us during the first hour of tonight's show, you didn't catch a live show. You caught a premiere of our film study. We broke down that new Kayshon Boutte and Ryan Grubb offense. Is it Ryan Grubb? I know it's Grubb. What's his first name?
I think it is Ryan.
All right. Either way, this CTE brain be doing that to me every once in a while with names. But anyways, broke down that offense that they're bringing over from Washington and those schematics and all that good stuff and the schemes that they're bringing over from Washington. Spent about an hour watching that. So if you haven't watched that, feel free to take some time out of your day to go ahead and do it. But we're going to talk about that booty first. Kayshon Boutte.
Hey, yeah.
All right. One of the more interesting stories that we've had in college football in the last couple of weeks, and we've had some doozies, okay? We have a segment around here called Brooksy Gonna Save You Some Reading, so let me save you some reading. There was an arrest made this morning in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, for Kayshon Boutte being charged with felony computer fraud and a misdemeanor for betting under 21 years of age. Essentially, Kayshon Boutte, not essentially, he did. Kayshon Boutte opened up two DraftKings accounts. Was it DraftKings?
Yes.
Believe so.
Two online gambling accounts, okay, under the age of 21 with false aliases. The first being his mother and the second being a name that he made up by the name of Kayla Fortenberry. Shouts out to Kayla Fortenberry. She got some straight cash in this transaction. But nonetheless, from April 6th of 2022 to May 7th of 2023, Kayshon Boutte placed 8,927 bets, with at least 17 of those bets coming on college football and 6 of those bets, per reporting today, coming on LSU, including one of them placed on himself. Guys, in 396 days, from April 6th of 2022 to May 7th of 2023, Kayshon Boutte placed over 8,900 bets. That's an average of 22 and a half bets per day. We could talk about going to jail. We could talk about all the, laws that he broke and all the charges he's been facing. My man needs to see a therapist. My man probably needs to go to some type of Gamblers Anonymous type of meeting first before he's committed to any type of sentencing or any type of, court hearing. This is like when you get caught going 120 in a 55 and you go do all your defenseless driving classes before you go to court so you can show the judge that you've actually done some good deeds prior to going out here and being faced with sentencing. He placed a prop bet on himself in that 2022 FSU game, 82 and a half yards or more. He obviously took the over on that. Do you know what his stat line was in that football game,
think
gentlemen?
it was
Two receptions, 20
catches
yards?
for 20 yards.
2 receptions for 20 yards, and I remember him being extremely, extremely animated in that football game. I also saw some highlights, or they should be called lowlights, from that football game today as well. He had 4 drops in that football game, and had he caught all 4 of those balls, I think he might have won the bet on himself. Like I told you, he placed one of these accounts under his mom's name and one under Kayla Fortenberry, both a misrepresentation of identity, both charges in this case. The funny thing here, and none of this is really funny, but the comical thing, I should say, was the usernames that he used, boys. He used his mom's name to create the accounts, and then, of course, you have usernames that you have to associate the accounts with. The first username that he used on his mom's account was Kayshon Boutte 01. The second username that he used under the second account was Kayshon Boutte 07. Now, there's a lot of jokes to be had about the smooth criminal behavior that this was, or lack thereof. But my first initial thought when I saw this was, one, he clearly did not have any idea that this was illegal. okay? Because no one's out here doing illegal shit under that type of brashness, okay? No smart criminal. Okay, so he obviously was very unaware of the laws that he was breaking. Ignorance of the law is not innocence of the law, by the way, so that's not going to stand up in court, even though I don't imagine he's going to get life sentence or anything over this or the maximum penalty. But nonetheless, that's the first thing I thought of. Oh, this dude clearly had no idea the magnitude of the laws that he was breaking. The other thing, if he didn't know it was illegal, I know for a fact no one told him. All right, and that's a problem to me. That's the main problem. We can make fun of Kayshon Boutte all we want, but there was a football program out there at LSU that clearly had none of these conversations with any of their athletes, and I'm not saying that's your responsibility, but isn't it? Isn't your responsibility to make sure that your players aren't out here breaking the laws that are unbeknownst to them? Look, I think there's two lessons to be learned here. A, what in the hell was Kayshon Boutte's mama doing with the bank accounts? Okay, $132,000 gets deposited out of mine. I think I'd have a heads up. I think I'd be like, hey, what's going on here? All right, so that would be the first thing. The second thing would be like, hey, why didn't no one educate this young man on what was right and what was wrong with regards to online gambling? Again, man, like I don't want to place the blame at the feet of the administration and the feet of the football organization at LSU, but this was clearly an oversight, very much so clearly an oversight there. So first and foremost, be very, very careful, I should say, with where you send your children to school, because, you know, once they leave your household, they're under a new household, that new household being the college football program that you sent them to, and you better be okay, better be making sure that they're, you know, going through their due diligence with regards to making sure basic laws aren't being broken, and basic laws are being made aware of, particularly with regards to gambling. Let's talk a little bit about his gambling record before I get you guys in here, because a lot of this stuff got misrepresented a little bit today. There were some people thinking this dude was on a heater. Not so much. He deposited $132,147.53 into his account under both accounts. So this is total amounts under both separate accounts. In those two accounts, he won over $500,000 in winnings, all right? But he only withdrew $50,000. So for simple math, put 130 in there, took out 50. He lost $80,000 over about 400 days. And there's a lot of questions to go here, boys. Where do you want to go? Do you think at any point he was on like a stupid, dumb heater and was just like, nah, I'm riding this one out? Or do you think it was classic gambler where I put $100 in, I lost 8 today, but don't worry, I won 10 tomorrow, and then I'm going to lose 3, and then I'm going to win 10 again. I'm up 20. No, you're not. You're really only up 7. You see what I'm saying? Like the math on some of these gambling addictions never really adds up. But when you do it simple, input, output, net delta is a negative $80,000, you're a bad gambler. You're a bad gambler, and you need to stop.
Yeah, 8,900 is a freaking huge number.
So 22.5 bets a day. And per my understanding of the reporting, this was like 22.5 separate registered bets. So if you place 8 prop bets into one parlay, that's one singular bet.
So it wasn't even like online casino stuff?
I don't believe so. This was all through registered, like big name gambling companies like DraftKings.
Good God. I can't really fathom. I don't want to say stupidity, but it almost is. Like how do you, one, not know that that's illegal, and 2, if you don't know that's illegal, that's a separate story, but how do you just consistently lose that much and that much of a spend? I mean, I guess when you're balling out, you have NIL checks coming in and such as that, but I just can't wrap my head around losing $80,000
Yeah,
in 400 days?
I can't either.
Surely someone was feeding him these bets, right? Like, because I mean, when I think about when I put together a prize pick play or whatever, like it takes me a little bit to put that thing together. So, and that's just one. I mean, that's just one play for a singular day. When I think about doing 22 of those things a day, that's a lot of time that I think about. So I feel like surely someone was like, hey, this is what I recommend for today. I think this is what you should run with. I mean, placing that many bets a day. Now I know it wasn't probably every single day. It was 22 bets, but that's very time consuming to think about.
Could it? I mean, have we considered the fact that maybe he was like an agent for something? Like he had that account, was taking bets for other people?
Oh, like the whole squad was getting in on Kayshon Boutte 01?
Yeah.
That's not a bad theory, but I would imagine he's rolling immediately.
Because, I mean,
Immediately turning over on those kids.
Yeah, but 22 bets a day, consistently, minimum baseline, 22 a
Bro's
day.
betting on esports.
That's insane. Like, the fact that I don't know if one person is capable of doing that.
Apparently. Yeah, dude, the sheer amount of gambling that was going on
What do you
is
think?
troublesome.
So, like, I'm just imagining him sitting in class and, like, say I'm sitting behind him in class and I see he's on DraftKings or whatever, like, cooking up a bet. You're just like, what the heck? Like, this dude is doing something illegal right now. What do I do? And someone was probably like, dang it, dude. I could have done something better. I could have helped him out, and I didn't. I let his problem continue.
So there was a lot of questions today on the internet about how a college football player gets that kind of money. This was a year after NIL had been enacted. So I'm going to assume that his, over half of his yearly salary was probably poured into this account.
I mean, he was one of the hottest names in wide receiver-wise in college football.
No, I mean, to think that he didn't make $130,000 in a singular year is a little bit fabricated, okay? We know what the deal is now in college football.
He did just fine.
Yeah, he was doing fine. I'm sure he's not filing for bankruptcy. However, it hasn't really played well for this guy. Since he was the hottest name. He was like one of the best wide receivers in the SEC. Even had a great game against Georgia in that SEC championship game. But from everything with regards to the draft process, didn't necessarily go well for this young man. And now this story. An absolutely tremendously crazy story, almost as crazy as the rumors about him and that thing that happened that one time at LSU. But we don't have to talk about that.
Nah, that was.
Those are some crazy rumors.
There's just been.
This is just 23 gambling bets a day. This isn't that bad, but some of the
work.
stuff that was reported during that SEC championship game a couple years ago was wild.
Yeah, just like in general, like there have been a bunch of wild stories that come out of LSU in the last. Like, you remember the Darius Geist thing?
Hey, you remember that time they were stealing money from the local children's hospital to pay backup offensive linemen?
Yeah.
That was wild. It's good times. Remember that time their former head coach, Les Miles, who ate grass, got accused of sexual harassment like 10 years after the fact? That was crazy too.
Yeah.
So much so, with so much concrete evidence, I think his Hall of Fame voting got restricted, and they vacated 37 wins. So, yeah, some crazy stuff go down there in the bayou. And they had the swamp. We didn't even talk about the swamp monster. They had the swamp monster down there for a while too. Some good times. Good times for LSU football, and a great time again to be here on this network. Welcome in. We got a loaded show for you guys. It's going to be a quick one. All right, we only got about 45 minutes left on this here live, so make sure you're hitting that thumbs up button. Make sure you're liking, subscribing, rating, reviewing, all the good stuff on tonight's show. We're going to talk a little bit more about that film study that we cranked out before tonight's show. Harbaugh officially headed to the Chargers. Sharon more than likely to be the hire there at Michigan. We'll talk a little bit about that. How would you format the 12-team playoff? A lot of changes coming around in college football, most notably the Pac-12 ceasing to exist. So as the college football playoff moves to 12, they're going to have to redo some rules, redo some layouts and some formats, considering we no longer have a Power 5 conference. Okay, we only have a Power 5, and they're auto-bidding 5 Power 5 conferences right now, despite the fact that we only have 4. Nonetheless, bottom
6
line,
if you include the group of 5, aren't they?
Correct. So either way, 6 automatic bids, you're correct. Either way, bylaws are going to have to be rewritten. We're going to try our best tonight to give you some options in terms of what college football could ultimately look like in terms of that 12-team playoff. Is this Georgia's best time to really run supreme over college football? I think the answer is obvious. We'll tell you why. Pick the worst. We're going to pick the worst Power 5 football team in college football. A lot of teams coming out, or a lot of content creators coming out here giving you the top 10. We're going to go the inverse tonight. Okay. And of course, the NCAA video game's coming out very, very soon. So we're going to give you the group of players that we think should be listed as 99 overalls in that football game. It's a great show, and it's a great time to be supporting this channel and supporting those who support us on this network. If you haven't already, make sure you're running over to prizepicks.com today and using promo code Brooks and getting your Kayshon Boutte on, baby. Okay, get over there to prizepicks.com today. Use promo code Brooks. You get a 100% deposit match. Okay, that means you put up to $100. They will match that sucker with some free money right there on the spot, only using promo code Brooks. Make sure you're doing that today. Boys, how about that film study, man? How about that film study?
It was good. It was good in depth. Like I said before the show, I had an absolute brain fart moment. I was like, oh, we're going to do Washington's offense, but completely forgot that DeBoer was going to be Alabama's head coach next year.
It'd be like that every once in a while?
Yeah, I think it was interesting to watch. I mean, obviously, I watched them throughout the season, but now knowing like where that staff is headed, Grubbs and DeBoer, and knowing that type of personnel that they have specific at the quarterback position, I think it makes it certainly a lot more interesting about maybe it's not so clear cut and dry that Jalen Milroe, you were the starter this year, and this next year, that's exactly what you'll be this year.
I think the thing that stood out to me most is, I think that offense got labeled different than what it was. Mm-hmm. The offense led the nation in passing. Okay, they threw it about, I think, north of 35 times a game. They were really, really elite through the air. Do not get me wrong. But I was blown away by the complexity in their run game.
That's what I was going to say.
I was really, really blown away by the complexity in their run game and how many different things that they did. And I would watch that Oregon game, and we're watching it as viewers. I'm not watching it as an analyst or as someone who's breaking down the tape trying to find schematics during live stream or during the live game. And I think I was at a football game on Friday night that night. I think I was watching Walton and Camden, nonetheless, during that Pac-12 championship. When I watched them on TV, you're like, damn, they're running stretch and they're running zone down Oregon's throat. How are they doing that? What's going on? This is Washington. We're supposed to be led to believe this team can't really run the football. They're a passing football team. And then you go watch the film and you're like, oh, they were hitting them with and gashing them with stretch because they were doing all of this other stuff with counter, with pin and pull, with different screen actions. They ran trap some in there as well, quarterback, truck sweep, all kinds of different stuff to really, really press and stretch edges and then kind of punch you in the mouth. So I was really, really impressed by that. And you know what? You mentioned the Milroe thing. Maybe they can make it work with Milroe. Like maybe they can add in a different, run scheme or some type of additional quarterback run design, very similar to what Tommy Rees did. But I am of the belief that I don't think it's safe to just assume that he's going to be able to do it like some Alabama fans want to. I also don't think it's safe to assume that he can't ultimately develop into this because I think we saw a tremendous amount of growth from week 1 to week 17 or week 16 or how many daggum football games they play nowadays, okay? So I think Milroe definitely progressed and definitely grew. But let's be honest about it. Jalen Milroe threw the football, I think, 21 times, 22 times a game last year and completed 65% of his balls. This is Kayshon Boutte, who just came from an offense throwing it about 35 times a game this year, 40 times a game last year, with a quarterback completing north of 70% of his balls. Okay, those are two totally different profiles, right? And two totally different systems. So I'll be interested to see whether or not Milroe can slide in. But if they don't, I feel very, very confident about a guy like Ty Simpson or a guy like Dylan Lonergan to be able to run these systems because, again, it's not about dual threat. It's not about, this guy looks like this guy can do this, whatever. I know the history of what DeBoer has selected at this position, and it just doesn't play like Jalen Milroe, right? Like Michael Penix does not play like Jalen Milroe. Will Rogers does definitely not play like Jalen Milroe. So the history of the preferences at the position tell me that he doesn't necessarily idolize or, envision himself running an offense with basically, not basically, a guy who's going to throw it 22 times a game and run it 12 times a game. That's not what he predicates himself off of.
Yeah, the level of quarterback play you saw from Alabama this year is not the same. Not that it was worse or better. I'm not trying to say that. But the fact is it's two very different styles. And you saw that with Jalen Milroe. Like you said, he's only throwing 22 times a game. But I think it's also that you have to be a really big processor in this type of offense. And you necessarily didn't have to do that as much at Alabama.
And, dude, you got to trust.
Mm-hmm.
You got to trust and throw in what looks closed now to what will be open. We saw a ton of that, right? A lot of plays where I was like, ooh, a lot of quarterbacks in college football will turn that down. They will look at that and they say, ooh, he's covered on to the next read, or ooh, he's covered, pull the ball down and run. It's not exactly what it's been with Penix. But even then on the film, it's not like Penix played perfect last year. Okay, there were some plays where we were like, oh, he's late on that read where maybe the next guy won't be. So, and even if the decisions that Penix made were always right, there were still answers left on the field if you looked at it, right? It wasn't just – and that's what's ideal about this system. It's what's ideal about all great systems. There's no one true right answer. We can give our quarterback multiple, and if we can give our quarterback multiple, we increase the chances that we're going to be effective.
I guess another plus, too, for them is, at least in the spring, you have a lot of different guys in that quarterback room that you're going to get a look at. You have quite a few different options, and you have quite a few different options with different skill sets. So you'll be able to kind of find out, like how is Jalen Milroe going to work in this offense, or like how does Dylan Lonergan fit in this offense, Austin Mack, etc. Tons of names to go through and siphon through in the spring, but at the same time, that's a lot of names that you do have to go through, that you have to siphon through in the spring, and there's only so many reps that you can hand out.
I've got a question for you then.
What's up?
So, obviously, like we know the type of offense that Kalen DeBoer is bringing to Alabama, or at least we can assume. I don't think he's going to navigate his offense or tweak it due to the roster he has. What do you think was said to Jalen Milroe to make him come back? Or do you think he's just so, I'm ride or die for Bama, this is what I'm doing, I'm staying here, I'm finishing what I started?
That's what it seemed like to me. Because the quote-unquote announcement was from a video of him walking into the facility, and he basically yelled at the people videoing him that he's not going nowhere.
Right.
And I think that's the right thing to do. I think the right thing to do is to say that you're here to compete and then go compete, and if you lose – all right, let's go somewhere else, and that's the job.
Do you think this could potentially be, say he doesn't win a spring portal entry?
As possible, but I would imagine, and look, I don't know the leadership demographics or the leadership dynamic, I should say, at Alabama, but I would imagine he's probably got some say in that locker room.
Yeah.
Right. I would imagine he's got some teammates that really adore him and really love him, and really cling to him as the face of their program to an extent. And that means a lot. That means a ton. I
mean, plus, too, when the news found out, especially the quarterback spot, I wouldn't say there were a whole lot of destinations left for someone like Jalen Milroe to find in the transfer portal. I mean, not that they're the same player, but we kind of saw the Will Rogers thing happen of he was no longer going to go to Washington, and then his name was back at Washington.
You don't think Bill O'Brien would take him up at Ohio State?
Golly, I mean, it seems like they take anybody at this point. You can play football.
Not after those comments at Rose Bowl press conferences.
Ooh.
You remember that?
Yeah, that was
where he
bad.
was like, "Hey, that Bill O'Brien guy sucks, and he told me I can't play quarterback. How you like me now?"
Yeah,
that's true. I forgot about that.
Yeah, probably not going there. But no, you're right in the sense that I do think you have to give the guy a chance to compete. The other thing I noticed outside of the quarterback discussion, and I think the biggest change, because they're going to have the weaponry. Alabama always will. Ryan Williams is a prime example of that, right? And they may even, it's hard to say they're going to get better at recruiting wide receivers after the run that they had from 2018 to 2021. So it's really hard to say they're going to improve. But I don't think there's going to be a dip there. But the biggest change for this offense will ultimately be what and how they recruit at the offensive line. They are not going to look the same as they have in years past, Alabama fans. Okay, this is not going to be your daddy's or your uncle's Alabama football team that was just ground and pound, straight meat eaters up front. All right, it's going to look totally different. Say what?
Murder ball.
Yeah, it ain't going to be that no more. It's going to be a lot more athleticism up front. Again, assuming he transcribes everything, which based off his decision-making process doesn't look to me like he's got any ideals on changing his concepts. In fact, he's bringing players over from Washington, most notably his center. And his center is the prime example of what we're talking about. Seth McLaughlin walked around this planet at about 310. This new center you guys got coming in is going to be a true sophomore, started as a true freshman last year. He's 275 pounds. Like, he is not what you're accustomed to in the SEC. So that's the biggest change, in my opinion.
Is that type of play going to work, do you think? Because, I mean, like Washington had success with what they did, but I don't think that Pac-12 D-lines, no disrespect to the Pac-12, aren't exactly on level with your Texas A&M D-lines, your Georgias, your LSUs, like some of the cream of the crop defensive lines.
We saw what Michigan did.
We saw what Michigan did to him, but I think what Michigan did to him, in my opinion, after studying that football game, Michigan's success defensively was far more predicated off of mixing and disguising coverages and kind of limiting the passing explosives than it had anything to do with the run game concepts. Because the run game concepts, guys, they're just there to design and cause some hesitation from the D-line. It's not to be the bread and butter of the football team. In fact, I think the only game this year that they ran the ball more or ran for more yardage than they threw for was against USC, and it's because USC was Swiss cheese on the defensive front. So there was that football game. The rest of them are chunk. We run to chew our medicine or eat our medicine. But all that being said, we showed it on the film study. The run game concepts cause hesitation in defenders. All right, so yeah, I think it's still going to be able to work because it's schematically based. It's still hard. You can't rush to get upfield. You can't rush to reset the line of scrimmage because there's so much misdirection going on in that system. So I think the system protects you from, having any type of downfall there.
Yeah, I guess the only thing I'm thinking is if you have a team that's completely able to completely neutralize the run game, whereas it's a non-factor to where you're losing yards basically every carry, and you can basically just tee off on the fact that they're going to throw the ball. We have 4 down linemen, similar to what these mint fronts are doing. Basically, just say, all right, we aren't going to need to load the box up pretty much. We can deviate defensive players elsewhere. I think that's kind of what I'm wondering.
Well, to answer your question honestly, if anyone gets made one-dimensional, their odds of winning a football game are drastically decreased. That being said, if I'm going to be made one-dimensional, I better have these passing game concepts that he's got. He's got good enough ones to throw for 450 and win a football game. Whereas if Georgia's offensive run game gets stymied for 50 yards in a football game, 9 times out of 10, y'all are probably losing that one, or you feel like you're going to lose that one.
Yeah.
This team can still win by 3 scores and throw for 450 if the offense, is predicated and ran at the right way at the quarterback position. So I like the question. I don't subscribe to this, the scheme won't translate. That's why we picked the Oregon game.
Right.
Because Oregon's running what all SEC teams do.
Yeah.
Oregon was running 4-2-5 simulated pressure. That's what they were running. A lot of Tampa, a lot of mixed Tampas in there, and a lot of zone coverage, mixed with some man coverage in there as well. So we picked that one for a reason because I think it's going to look like that when it comes to this conference. So, any other thoughts?
No.
I think Ryan Williams is going to eat in that system.
Yeah, he's going to be a
I
problem.
think a lot of people would eat in that system.
Yeah. All right, Harbaugh to the Los Angeles Chargers. I think we talked about this on Monday.
We that's when it started
We
surfacing.
basically we were like, it's done.
Everybody was saying that it was
like
done. But then it was like he went and did an interview with the Falcons, and so I think that was just to kind of leverage the Chargers into like, hey, just go ahead and lock it down, baby.
Falcons fans real happy today, I saw.
They're never happy, so it doesn't matter.
I get that.
I think it was a good hire, but we don't talk about
Dude, I feel like we've been talking about Jim Harbaugh for like 5 months on this show.
I mean, he's been arguably the top topic outside of the first 4 weeks when it was Deion Sanders and the Buffaloes.
Shouts out to the Boofs. But I'm kind of I got to be honest, I'm kind of happy to see him go for this reason because like Harbaugh and Michigan are good talking points, but Harbaugh and Michigan are not very the sign stealing was entertaining, but them as individuals not really entertaining. Pretty bland. Purposefully bland.
Yeah.
Talk to my players. Talk to my players. Do you got a future? I hope I have one. Very purposefully bland for Michigan. So almost kind of glad. But seeing him leave, all right, and see him head off to the NFL kind of made us as a chat room and us as a show get into the discussion of what is his legacy in college football ultimately going to be? Where does he kind of stand? What do we remember Jim Harbaugh for? He was a winner, man. He won at San Diego, won at Stanford, won at Michigan, won in the NFL before coming to Michigan. And he did so at all 3 levels with lesser than pools of talent. I think we've kind of found out how hard it is to win at Stanford if your name isn't David Shaw or Jim Harbaugh, right? I think we found out how hard it is to recruit there. And we saw at Michigan him win a national title with, I think, like the highest rating recruiting class in all of those cycles. In the 5 cycles is maybe like 6 or 7. He has won a title in the world of college football in a way that nobody really has. I can't remember a team that did it like this. Now, I know he gallivanted preseason about all of these guys that are going to play in the NFL, and there are a bunch of them, don't get me wrong, but they're not like first rounders. Look at your mock drafts. Is J.J. McCarthy costing somebody their job in the first round and then not really a Michigan player there in the mix? Most of the Michigan players will be like day 2 or day 3 draft picks. It's not what we've been accustomed to seeing from national title winning football programs. You don't believe me? Look at the history. In Georgia in 2021, they had 15 NFL draft picks. They had 5 first rounders. In 2022, or the next year when they followed it up with a repeat, they had 12 guys get drafted. In Bama in 2020, they had 6 first rounders during that COVID year. LSU, you know all about it. 6 first rounders in 2019. Clemson's entire defensive line in 2018 was drafted. And oh, by the way, they had the number 1 quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, in the next year's NFL draft. Okay, this list of good football teams that had great NFL football players on their roster, they all check boxes. And then there's just like Michigan, roster that doesn't really, I'm not going to say make sense, but it points to, hey, they must have been coached exceptionally well, right? This is not an individually talented roster. This was a collectively talented roster that played well, really, really well together. He's obviously a downright really, really good football coach, which made the Stallions thing really, really weird.
Yeah, I think I saw something today where he already has the highest winning percentage amongst active NFL coaches now. Like, he's already number one on that list. So, obviously, he's done a lot of winning. Just interested to see how quickly it takes for him to compare Justin Herbert to J.J. McCarthy.
I think, and I don't know if I'm the only one on this, I think his legacy as a college football coach is going to be decided in the next 5 or 6 years. Because the way we're going to remember him is whatever comes of this cheating scandal. Because if it's as serious as some of us think it is, I mean, the Michigan program is going to be in a lot of trouble. Sherrone Moore is going to be left with a fire. And kind of, you look at it also, what does the win do after that? Is it stained? Like, do we look at it back on, yeah, he won that title with Michigan. They went 15-0, but it was because they were cheating. Like, I think there's so much room to undermine and kind of illegitimize his successes now, which I don't know if is necessarily fair, but I think at some point it is going to.
I think it's fair to call into question the results of the one-score games from 2021 to 2022, right? That stretch where they were doing these things and nobody had caught them, and then maybe the first 4 games of this year. You can call into question the results of those football games. But once this investigation started and they ceased these operations and then proceeded to just kind of walk through their schedule and then not necessarily walk through because they had an overtime football game, but kind of walk through the college football playoff as well. As an outside observer, you can't delegitimize their national title, but you can delegitimize the changes that were created to kind of make their national title run, right? I think 2021 and 2022, particularly those Ohio State wins and maybe that Illinois win that was real, real close. These are football games where say what you want about knowing things and knowing not things, and you still got to line up and play football. It definitely didn't hurt, and they were definitely adamant about getting those calls in from Connor Stallions on the sideline too. So I'm not going to go as far as to say it, negates the national title or negates too much of this. I think you did hit on one thing. Man, he is just leaving Sherrone Moore out to kind of dry. Now, granted, Sherrone Moore is going to get a head coaching job out of this, but this is very much so. Put that meme up on the board. This was tweeted out by I can't remember who, but this was the best tweet I saw from this. Basically, Jim Harbaugh is Bane, and Sherrone Moore is the guy they leave in the plane. They're going to expect one of us in the wreckage, brother. That one right there is classic college football mematory right there, brother.
I feel like this is just my opinion now. Obviously, Michigan fans stood in the paint for Jim Harbaugh the entire time. They never left his side. They stayed loyal to him, had nothing but love for him. So maybe they still have nothing but love for him. Obviously, I feel like you would after just winning a national title. But I feel like part of you has to feel a little bit used, and I feel like part of you has to feel like that national title maybe didn't mean as much to him as it did to you. Because what it feels like to me now is winning the national title was more so to him about an ego stance more than it was anything else. It wasn't about winning a national title for Michigan or bringing greatness back to that program. It really just feels like he wanted to win that title just so he could tell everybody that he won that title. And now it's like, okay, now that I got that, I can go back to the NFL where I want to be anyway. So I just feel like I would feel a little dirty or done dirty at least by Jim Harbaugh if I was a Michigan fan.
And I think it's also going to be interesting to think about because like we said, if you –
I was born in the dark.
If you do get a lot of these sanctions and the Michigan program suffers greatly over the next few years, how do Michigan fans view Harbaugh? Say worst case scenario, the national championship is vacated. How do you feel about Harbaugh if you're a Michigan fan? Where you got us this championship, you took us to new heights, but you left us out to dry, and you basically knew that shit was hitting the fan as soon as you left, and that's why you got out. You've kind of left us with this situation.
So let me ask you this. I mean, you went through a 41-year drought. I mean, y'all didn't. Y'all weren't alive for most of it, but I don't think you'd give a shit. But if I would have told the regular Jimmy Georgia fan down in South Georgia who ain't got nothing to live for other than them dogs on Saturday, if I told him before the 2021 season, hey, you're going to have to sacrifice your puppy over there for the dogs to win a title, he'd be like,
I don't give a piss about nothing but the dogs.
I don't give a piss about nothing but them dogs. yeah, I think there's a portion of Michigan's fan base that's like, hey, 32 years, I will sell my soul, and I will damn sure sell Jim Harbaugh's.
I think if anything, like now that you put it in the perspective of like, say, after Georgia won the national title in 2021, Kirby was like, deuces, I'm out of here. I think what I would lose is like this image and picture of like Kirby Smart coming back to his home university because he loves his home university and he loves the Dogs. At that point, it would just feel like that was just kind of something I had to check off my honey-do list, and now I got that taken care of.
The fire rises.
He's just Googling quotes.
He's Googling Bane quotes now?
No.
You nerd.
I would never.
I don't even know what I was going to say now.
Do you feel in, child?
No, dude, I don't.
This is a decent limited fake. It's not terrible. It's not as bad as the Munson.
No, you definitely had to touch it up early. It was sounding a little bit like Jar Jar Binks a little early, mixed with the Russian guy.
I don't know who Jar Jar Binks is, but he sounds kind of lit. It's a cool name.
You would hate him.
Is he a skater?
No.
Surfboard?
Sorry,
No.
he's a Star Wars
All right.
character.
Oh, that makes sense.
For who? What?
Very unique way of winning a national title for this guy. But it's changing. It's changing coming forward, right? No longer a college football playoff with just 4 teams. We are moving to 12 next year, all right? And it's interesting because classic college football. Do y'all remember when Washington and all these guys bailed recently? Washington and Oregon bailed from the Pac-12 to the Big Ten.
Yes.
I do.
So I was set to be on VSiN out there in Las Vegas.
Shout out, Brett.
Shout out Brent Musburger. Supposed to be on their network, and I'm on the pre-show call. And Jake Butt, you remember the tight end at Michigan?
Yeah.
He's on the Big Ten network now because, when you're handsome and you actually played big Power 5 football, they put you on network television. They don't make you sliming out in the slums on YouTube like us. Okay, so Jake Butt walked into a cushy studio job once he got done with his NFL career. And I'm on the call, and Jake Butt's supposed to be on before me, but they have to push me up because Jake Butt gets called in for emergency work on the Big Ten network. And here's all I got to thinking about. You're telling me the Big Ten got surprised by that? Because that's what had to have had happened, right? Yeah. They got surprised by the decision, so they had to start calling in all their people in to come do reactionary television on their television network. So the Big Ten was out here thinking on their feet, just trying to grab up as much as they can, all right, which has now made the college football playoff do the same thing, but real slow. You see me get a question.
Is the Big Ten affiliated with the Big Ten Network, or is it just a network that uses their licenses?
Okay, you don't think they got the drop?
I mean, I'm sure they have some idea of it, but
I would imagine the Big Ten Network CEO and the Big Ten president and commissioner, whoever that guy is now, I would imagine they're on speed dial with one another.
Let's put it this way. Do you think that the network would make more money if they were in the know?
Probably,
I think so.
Sure.
You think Paul Feinbaum's got Greg Sankey's number?
Probably.
Yeah.
All right. So anyways, they were completely caught off guard, all right, at least the television networks were. And I only tell you that to tell you that I think all of college football this time last year was just flying by the seat of their pants willy-nilly. All right, just out here making hash and harsh decisions, real just like this, like just a crazy person trying to get everything settled and stop the Titanic plates from crashing into one another. All right, so that's what was going on last year, and we're getting all the fallout now. One of those fallouts being, how are they going to select the 12 teams in the college football playoff? Now there's currently a bylaw written in there where they will give an automatic bid to the 5 Power 5 conference champions and a 6th automatic bid to the highest ranked non-Power 5 football team. Here's the problem. There's only 4 Power 5 conferences now, all right, because the Pac-12 ceased to exist. So, boys, we thought it'd be a good idea to create our own college football playoff format and how they will go about selecting these 12 teams. Would you like me to go first?
Sure. Lay the groundwork for
Someone
us.
said do the rest of the show in the Bane voice.
Please
I don't think I can.
No, please don't.
No.
Please don't do that.
So, conference realignment, in my opinion, still hasn't settled. I think there's an opportunity that Florida State could still be out here trying to piss off the ACC. I don't know if Clemson's settled. I don't know what Notre Dame's going to do. Are they still going to believe they're holier than thou for the rest of their career? I don't know. I don't think conference alignment is ever really going to settle. In fact, I'm of the belief that Cal and USC in a couple years after getting their teeth kicked in by the Big Ten, traveling all across the country for their women's softball team's going to be like, why in the hell did we do this? This makes no sense. So they might end up dipping back out anyways, in my opinion. So there's a whole bunch of really large moving parts still going on in college football. So I don't think we should do any of these types of predetermined bids. I don't think there should be any you win a conference, you get in. All right, let's remove automatic bids entirely. Let's rank them straight up with 6 professional minds, 6 people who really, truly love and care about college football. All right, and not only that, have a breadth of knowledge about the sport. Nowadays, we got athletic directors deciding this shit, and I love athletic directors. I think they're great people. I don't think they know what counter wrap RPO looks like, to tell you the God's honest truth, and I bet they don't look at anything other than some analytics. You think they're grinding the tape? Probably not. Not that that's what it's got to be about, but there's got to be some general give and take with regards to football knowledge on this, and football specific knowledge. Like, we're out here really grinding it out 365 days of the year, studying this sport and caring about this sport. So give me 6 humans, and then I want 3 votes from the BCS system, the computer model system. So I want 6 humans, and I want 1 vote counted 3 times from the BCS unbiased computer-rated system. We mix both. Who are the 6 people, though, Brooks? What are we going to do? Because you said you hated on Condoleezza Rice out here deciding who's going to be in the college football playoff. So what are we going to do? Well, I'll tell you. There's this really, really great football coach that just retired. His name's Nick Saban. Put him on the board. And then, by the way, there's this guy out here helping the SEC, and he's just helping the SEC, so Greg Sankey didn't allow him to get hired by anybody else because he's really close to Arch Manning. But this guy by the name of David Cutcliffe's been around college football for like 45 years, and he's kind of the father of a lot of offensive systems and offensive concepts and how we just generally talk about the sport. So let's put David Cutcliffe on this. Hey, by the way, this guy named Pete Carroll just retired. And I know he's got kind of a hazy history with the NCAA, but the NCAA and the CFP playoff are totally different things, so it don't really matter. Put Pete Carroll on this list as well. Hey, how about my boy Bobby Stoops? Bobby Stoops been sitting at home, ain't been doing jack shit but helping out Oklahoma when Lincoln Riley dipped out. So Bobby Stoops, come talk some football with us. Come help us decide who the best teams in college football are. So those are my kind of like 4 myriad, 4 horsemen of great former coaches. Now, we see with the coaches poll that sometimes coaches don't know the best for their sport. Sometimes they can be a little biased. Sometimes they just do the Jimmies and the Joes, or who's got the most talent, or they do the eye test a little bit too much. So let's get 2 humans in this mix here that might be other than coaches. Well, who am I talking about? Well, there are 2 really, really big television networks that kind of control the narratives and the television broadcasting of the entire sport, one being ESPN, one being Fox. I only think of 2 names from those 2 companies that are elite. And I think by far, hands down, the greatest at what they do. One is Kirk Herbstreit. I don't think there's any doubt about it. That guy knows, loves, cares about college football. Florida State fans are setting their hair on fire right about now. And the other one, all right, in my opinion, is Joel Klatt. Now, you can say what you want about Joel Klatt. You might have some thoughts about how biased he is towards the Big Ten and how biased he was towards the Pac-12 and how biased he is towards Fox television and all that good stuff. But if we're going to put an ESPN guy on there, we might as well put a Fox guy on there. And I do believe Joel Klatt is a dude. So let's put him on there as well. And I see a bunch of Josh Pate mentions in here. Look, anything that comes out of my mouth about Josh Pate's 100% born in jealousy. So no, he's not getting on this list. I'm just too jealous of the guy.
So you went more in the direction of raw system, just I'm picking the committee to select these teams. So
I want pure 1 through the 12. Give me the 12 teams y'all think are the best. Line them up. Let's play football. So I don't care about automatic bids. I don't care about non-Power 5 Cinderella stories. I don't give a shit. If you're a non-Power 5 football team and you want to get into this mix, guess what you got to do? You got to do what we all got to do on NCAA in a couple of months, and that's create the baddest ass schedule you've ever seen in terms of out of conference. You better be going to get Notre Dame. You better be going to get USC. You better be going to get these teams that are willing to play you out of conference.
That's the baddest out of conference schedule you could think of.
I'm just come on, bro.
I'm just giving you shit.
I chose those 2 specifically because Notre Dame's in no conference. They're begging every year for opponents. Very similar thing with USC.
Right.
I think that I would combine my idea and your idea.
Let's hear your idea, buddy.
Basically, I just was my whole premise was kind of adopt the NFL style of playoff layout in the sense of, so if you win your conference, that shouldn't automatically give you a top seed in the college football playoff. Basically, whoever won the NFC South this year, the Buccaneers, they were not a top seed in the NFL playoffs. I think that, and so what I said is, obviously those people should get an automatic bid, in my opinion, because if you win your conference, if you win the conference of the Big 12, the Big 10, ACC, and SEC, you're probably a really good football team, and you're probably already deserving of being in the playoff.
Or you're playing your best football.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you have those 4 teams, and the rest of the 8, we take your committee that you just put together, and they decide the rest of the 8 teams. They decide all of the seeding for it.
You gonna throw a Zin can at me?
I was. I thought you put your hand up like you wanted some.
No, I'm good. Thanks. I thought you were just gonna throw it at. I like that one. I did mine a little interesting, more like abstract. So, first of all, I think we all can agree, get rid of the Auto 5 bid.
Yeah, that's in mine too. I forgot to say that. Get rid of the G5
Get rid of the Group of 5 power. You want to be treated like a regular Power 5 team, schedule a regular Power 5 conference. I think it's ridiculous that the 1 year Cincinnati and USC whined, or UCF whined enough, people were like, oh yeah, we gotta be fair to the little guy. Yeah. It's bullshit. All right, so there's a Power 4 now, essentially, because the Pac-12's dead. So I said pretty much that we have now a Power 4 conference. Those 4 champions get auto bids. Mm-hmm. And here's why I did that. Because, one, you have to create some incentive for winning your conference. So the 4 auto bids get the 4 bye weeks. Now, here's the other thing. The previous schedules that we had and the previous divisions allowed for, you had 3 lost teams in the conference championship. So with all these non-division conferences now, you're going to get the 2 best record teams. Like, you're going to get the best against best in conference championships, so it's going to work out better anyways. You're not going to have undefeated Georgia playing a 3-loss LSU like you would have had in 2022. So you're going to get the best teams in the conference. That's why I said give them auto bids. And basically after that, the 8 after that, it's subjective. Do what you want. So
you actually would have gotten Georgia versus LSU because I don't think anyone in the East was better than 9-3. But I get your point.
Yeah,
I do get your point.
No, because Bama had 2 losses. So it would have been Bama.
It would have been Bama despite the head-to-head. Mm-hmm. So you're right. I do think we need something in these clauses about head-to-heads.
Yeah.
Because what you're talking about and what you wrote about on Dogs Daily today was a brilliant concept, is the idea that we have so many different, the idea that Georgia and Alabama could play 3 times next year, legitimately. Right? The idea that Georgia and Texas could play 3 times next year.
Yep. Yeah.
That right there alone is going to drastically decrease the amount of times we're going to have undefeated champions. Mm-hmm. So these head-to-head matchups are going to matter.
And it's also is that going to at some point
That's to me why the computer system mattered. That's why I put it in.
Yeah, I like that. And I think you're also going to have to run into problems of, is it lessening the quality of the product? Having to watch, it's fine if you're a Georgia fan. It was fine if you're an Alabama fan. But watching Georgia play Alabama in the SEC championship and then turn around not a month later or 2 games later and have to play them again for the national championship, that's not necessarily what people want to see. So I can only imagine having to watch Georgia Alabama 3 times in a 3-month span. It's not like the NFL where you have 17 games and there's only so many teams you can play. There's a plethora, a wide range of teams. Having to play the same team 3 times in a season, I think, is going to get very old.
The only way that doesn't happen is if Georgia and Texas was Kansas City versus the Bills. If it's an absolute banger every single time, nobody's going to care. If it's an instant classic every single time, then nobody's going to care. But if it gets to a point where it's just Georgia beating up on Texas or Texas beating up on Georgia or anybody of those 2 matchups, then it would get watered down very quickly.
Mm-hmm. I don't know about you guys, but I'm a ranking slave. When it comes to those matchups, if it's 1v3, I'm sitting my ass down watching all 4 quarters anyways. I do not care. That's the way my college football brain works, and I think that's the way your brain works right now.
I think the one reason that I feel like people are going to get fatigued of it is because that 3-year run where we had Bama and Clemson play every game in the postseason, that 4-year span was oh my God, if I have to watch another Alabama versus Clemson, I'm going to go crazy. So I think you're going to deal with that with Georgia, Alabama. And you kind of have lately. People are I'm sick and tired of seeing Georgia and Alabama in the SEC championship. So that's the one area I think you're going to get fatigued because, like I said, there's more teams in college football. So when the variety of games that you have isn't as great. There's 32 teams in the NFL. They're going to overlap a lot.
Definitely still some decisions out here left to be made by the College Football Playoff Committee and the College Football Playoff entity as a whole. Here's what I don't know. I know the 13 guys and gals are constantly rotating, but who's actually the decision maker for the CFP? Which I would imagine Greg Sankey and the big, commissioners have
big
a lot
football.
of role and a lot of say. Big football?
Yeah.
Big football? It's big ag. We got a short in football. Big footy.
Bigfoot.
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 Bigfoot out here messing around. Yeah, but nah. We'll have to see about that. They're going to have to come to some type of decision that everybody can agree upon. Now, what I would imagine that they did, and the NCAA is really smart about this. I don't know if CFP is, but the NCAA every year at that coaches conference out there in San Antonio, I think this year was in Nashville. Last year was in Nashville. This year was Austin. Wherever it goes, it's always moving. But the NCAA always did a really good job of going out there and surveying all of those college football coaches to get some type of, reading on how they feel about these rule changes. And that's how most of these rule changes over the years have been implemented, believe it or not. I didn't hear anything about that coming out of these college, coaching clinics as of late. So that to me is a misstep. I think we should have been doing some probing on those guys in terms of how do you want this to be situated? How do you want this to look? Are you tired of these 13 people? Do you think we need to do automatic bids? All the questions that we all have about these systems, they should have been asking college football coaches the last month when they were all in one place.
Yeah.
To me, I think that's a little bit of an oversight. But, hey, if you had a college football commissioner, you might be able to get it done. Is this the best time for Georgia in the history of the football program to really, really lock down a dynasty?
Absolutely it is.
I think it's a silly question. I think it's so obvious of a yes because, first of all, they already have the 2 in the bank.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Got the 2 in the bank, and now you took a year off, and going into year 4 of this proposed dynasty, it doesn't look like there's a clear-cut number 2. And that's why I proposed the question. Because how often in college football over the last, 20 years, have we looked at the landscape and say, hey, who's the second best coach in this sport? And why are there like 9 decent answers? And there's one clear-cut answer as to who the best coach in college football is. Because that's where we are right now. And I'm not saying coaching is the end-all, be-all. It's coaching and talent. And, oh, by the way, the best coach is the best recruiter in this sport. So, boys, it's hard for me to look at the landscape of college football. And this got brought to my attention trying to do the top 10 coaches.
Yeah.
I don't know who the second best coach is in college football right now. When you take into account best, setting around him, like best ingredients in the kitchen and best cook, I don't know who number 2 is. And that to me alone sets up for an immediate run over the next, several years for Georgia. And by the way, I would argue Kirby Smart's in his prime.
Oh yeah, I'm on the fence on this honestly because part of me thinks that the talent distribution that you have with the transfer portal being a full-fledged entity in college football now, like 5 years ago, yeah, you had guys sprinkle in, like guys who weren't going to get starting positions. You have full-out starters going to other teams and make, like we saw it this year. There were 8 teams that were capable of making the playoff. We had every Power 5 team every Power 5 conference had a champion that had 1 loss or less. So, I mean, we saw so many good teams this year that part of me kind of thinks that Is it? I know that Kirby Smart is clear-cut number 1 coach, but are his rosters worlds above all these others? Because, I mean, there's so many great teams.
Honestly, I put it in here, right? Like, it's not just about Bama. Like, Bama kept Georgia out of national titles a bunch, right? 1-5, I think, was the record or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Bama fans know it like the dimples on their hands, all right? So it's not only that Georgia has been kept out of national title runs on the field from Alabama, but that was their number 1 competitor in terms of talent acquisition as well. Like, their boards collided more than any other board. Alabama and Georgia and Ohio State's board only collides every so often. It's not every prospect. Every prospect, Georgia and Alabama were competing against one another, and that no longer is going to exist at the rate that it did, at least, right? There's still going to be some guys in the state of Alabama, maybe East Mississippi, on in Louisiana, and into Texas that Georgia has to beat Alabama for because they got to pass that daggum school to get to Athens. But there's a lot more of it's not even a level playing field anymore. It's directly swayed towards Kirby in terms of player acquisition. But you mentioned it. What was the monster in terms of competing with Alabama is now the monster in terms of competing with NIL because now players are being dispersed evenly a little bit more because of the ability to pay for play.
The only thing that I would say that maybe could hinder you of saying that it's so obvious that this is the perfect time for Georgia is that everybody collectively right now is going into unknown territory. I mean, if it was still the current 14 playoff format, I would say that Kirby Smart is going to go in there and bust everybody up almost every single year. But when you add in 8 more teams into the mix,
Chaos.
it's ultimate chaos. So many different things can happen. You add so many different games. Everybody is going into this blind essentially because nobody has experiences. But when you say that Kirby Smart is in his prime and he knows how, he at least knows how a football season operates and he knows how to get there to the end, he certainly holds the advantage over everybody else right now.
Dude, there's going to be seasons where, like, take next year, for example. Take Georgia, for example. You have Texas, you have Alabama, you have Ole Miss on the schedule. To make an SEC championship game, they're going to have to win 2 out of those 3 and go undefeated. So then at that point, they get into a situation where they might not have to win the SEC championship game, but they're basically in win or go home mode for like 7 weeks.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're going to have to play the SEC championship game, presumably not one of the first 4 overall selections if you drop one of your regular season games, right? Mm-hmm. So now you have to play the first round, second round, third round championship game.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about adding
plus an SEC championship.
Yeah, we're talking about adding 2 more games to the schedule. And, oh, by the way, the 2 games are going to be the hardest teams you play all season.
Correct.
Like, it's do or die at that point. So, I mean,
after surviving completely foreign opponents in the first 2 weeks.
Right.
Because your odds are you're going to get somebody you never really cross with in that first round.
So I think my conclusion on it is this. Kirby Smart is now the clear-cut number 1 head honcho of college football, but winning a national title has gotten that much harder overall. It's not 2012 anymore where, you just got to beat 12 teams and you're in. It's now you have to deal with the consequences of the transfer portal. Oh, by the way, now you have to play 5 straight games and you're pretty much going to have top 10 opponents. I mean, when you go from conference championship to round 1, 2, and then national championship, that's 4 straight weeks of just grinders. So, I mean, anything can happen at that point.
Absolutely.
So I think that's what's kind of hindering me from saying this is absolutely the best time to do it, just because it's such a weird time. But other than that.
Oh, no way. Dejon Edwards just got invited to the Senior Bowl.
Good for him.
Bad for the back that got hurt to give him an option to go there. I would imagine that's how that happened. But, yeah, not good for him. Is Kendall out there? I think Kendall's in Mobile, is he?
I'm not sure. So
is he?
I don't know.
Either way, we'll talk more about the Senior Bowl as it comes a little bit closer. I'm going to get out there one of these years.
I would like to go.
I feel so guilty for leaving. Like it's like a long trip to go to Mobile. I feel so guilty leaving in January and February after the season that we have. I mean, it's nuts.
Yeah.
My poor wife. And you know what? I love my children. So
that's a good thing.
It's kind of cool to be around them. All right, let's pick the worst. Or do y'all want to pick the worst later and talk about who should be the 99 overalls? We got about 3 minutes.
We can pick the 99 overalls because I feel like we're gonna have a lot of overlap. Because I honestly struggled with this.
I got 5 names.
5?
All right.
I got 5 names. Y'all want to go from 5 to 1?
Let me go first because I feel like you definitely have 2 other.
There's some overlap.
I have Caleb Downs and Malachi Starks.
Yep, I got those.
Those are the only 2.
You're missing an obvious one.
I am, aren't I? Which one is it?
Travis Hunter.
Oh.
I don't think he's a 99.
How's he not going to be? He's going to be listed as an athlete. He's going to be listed.
He's going to be a 99 overall.
I don't think. What position is he?
For pure marketing.
What position?
ATH.
What position?
They will list him at the top of Colorado's roster as an ATH.
No, because here's the thing. What position is he a 99 at? Because if you put him at corner, his rating goes down. If you put him at wide receiver,
just a 99.
Yeah, it's just 99.
So what they'll do is because they're not taking into account hitting power for the overall 99 of the wide receiver, but they put a rating in there. So what it'll look like is they'll say ATH 99, and then all of his receiving metrics will be that of a score of a 99, and all of his defensive back metrics will be that of all of a 99. His stamina will probably be a 99. His injury rate will not be.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think he's a 99.
Do you think there's a 99 overall quarterback?
I struggle with this one. I don't think there is.
No.
I don't think so either.
I think Quinn Ewers or Carson Beck are your
Quinn
best
Ewers
options,
and Carson Beck are probably going to be your 2 that are like probably like 96, 97.
Speed's going to get Carson.
Yeah.
And
injury or whatever.
Size and frame and speed maybe.
When I think of 99 overall, I think of like the most polished, the perfect example of like what this player is at the position. And I think Carson Beck has a little bit of room of improvement.
All right, I got one. I got 2 more for you. And this one's a me thing. I think Barrett Carter's going to be the best linebacker in college football next year.
That's a fair one.
I think he's worth a 99 rating. And what Will Johnson did to close the year as a corner at Michigan and a returning junior, former 5-star, 6 foot, almost 2, really long, played great to close the stretch. I think Will Johnson has the right to be the highest rated corner going into next year.
That's a good shout right there.
That's a good one.
Any receivers?
That's what I was trying to think. I don't know.
We don't know these guys until next year.
Yeah.
How about
Marvin Harrison would have been a 99.
Yeah. How about here's one. How about Ricky Seals out of UNLV?
Oh,
This is a deep Georgia pull. He's a kid from Marietta, but
Yeah.
Ricky Seals, man,
I don't know.
He had like 1,500 yards this year at UNLV.
Yeah, but
definitely probably be the highest rated player on that.
he'll be like a
roster.
96 or something.
Yeah, he'll be a guy.
And you'll schedule a game against UNLV, and someone's gonna be like, "Who the heck is this kid cooking me every time I play UNLV, bro? Like, what the? This is not realistic, man. This is not
This
happening."
game sucks. It's not real.
Someone's gonna force a portal entry just to get him to come to their team.
Here's one it's biased, but I think it's well deserved. Brett Thorson.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay. Not a bad shout. Already got Malachi. I think Mikel's stats are going to keep him out of this 99 discussion, even though he's up there. Like he's the best defensive.
Because that's the thing too. Like, there's so many players to rate that it's going to be a lot of like, oh, well, let's look at the numbers he put up.
You're going to have to be head and shoulders better than the next guy.
I think it's two things: your production and your like athletic output have to match.
Shit. What about Abdul Carter, the linebacker from Penn State?
That's a good one. Or
That kid's insane.
Ohio State, Tuamaloau.
JT Tuamaloau? That's a possibility. But again, are you so head and shoulders above every defensive end and edge rusher that you're going to be a 99?
There's got to be an offensive lineman that's a 99.
Yeah, they're.
I was looking at the preseason rankings. There's not like last year would have been like a Joe Alt or like a
or the Ola Fashanu
or Fashanu. Yeah, like a clear cut. That dude's a dude.
Yeah.
We don't have that right now.
Would have Marius Mims been a 99?
No.
No.
Sample size. I still can't get over the fact that kid only started 8 football games.
That's all you need, baby.
That's nuts. Hey, we had a great night tonight on the channel. Make sure you show up back on Monday. I'm sure I'll have something for you tomorrow morning. No promises. I love you. We'll see you next time.